Hey YouTube, I'm back working on the Ranger 395 VIO. I'm going to be working on the live wells. If you saw the video last week, you saw that I pulled the engine out of the boat so we could access the plumbing. And now that I've got it out, I want to clean the bilge area. I've got some grease and dirt, and it's just going to be a lot better to work on that live well system after I get it all cleaned up. So I'm going to put in some Dawn dish soap and use my power washer and get that area cleaned up. We'll get started right now. I've been using this bass boat to do some tournaments with my kids, and I need a better live well system. So what I've done is install some of the Flow Rite Livewell valves, and I just got them installed here. Now this boat had the Atwood Tsunami pumps, and what I did is they were mounted a little differently. I had to take the bracket and unscrew them from here and move it to this position and bend it down a little bit, and I put the Flow Rite valves, and that's because I've got a V8 engine that sits in here and I need the clearance. And on these valves, how they work is you've got the front portion points towards the live well, and this would be the drain of the live well, and then the back of the valve points towards the rear of the boat for the drain, basically that take water in or drain depending on the position. And then we've got the pump which pumps up water to the top of the live well. And then so depending on the position that you've got your valves in, I've got the controls here which I still need to mount in the side of the boat. You've basically got three positions. You've got empty, auto, and recirculation. If you've got it in the recirculation mode, that's the mode that you have when the live well's already filled up and maybe you're going to go trailer the boat to your weigh-in. And in that mode, it simply closes the valve from the intake, and then you just circulate water from the pump to the bottom of the live well, and that would be the recirculation mode. Now, if you've got it in empty, that mode just simply allows the valve to open the valve to the rear of the boat so you can drain the live well. And then if you have it in the auto mode continually brings in the fresh water through this hose and fills it up through the live well, and then any of the excess will flow out through your overflow. And in that method, it works good for basically. You also might want to have it in recirculation mode if you're on plane on the lake, because your live well will drain out as you're going down the water, or basically if you're doing weigh-in. Other than that, you would just have it in the auto mode, and that would just continually bring the water in fresh. And so before that, this boat, it's 1984, so I'm not sure if it never had the valves, but what I would have to do is simply put like a plug in the live well, fill it up with the pump, and then the excess would just go out the bottom and it didn't have the recirculation mode, which the only problem is you can't get that oxygenated water to the live well, because when the live well is pumping, it's going to have that water splash and create the oxygen effect to help keep your fish alive. And so that's really what I needed, and I've got this upgrade up now. The last time I had this boat out, I was on Lake Amistad, and I blew out the upper unit on the stern drive, and so I'm going to have another video coming out where I replaced that. And I decided while I was doing that to go ahead and just take the motor out and do this upgrade on the live wells. And like I said, I got these new hoses run through here, the new valves, and then to these valves, of course, you've got the cables that go to your valves, and I just ran them up through the side of the boat, and I used some fish sticks to run that wire up to front to where the controls are at. And I've got another video where I upgraded the live wells in my Ranger 330V. So some of this is similar, and it is a different boat. But after I upgraded the live wells on that boat, it really made me realize what an improvement it was over the old system, and it's just a lot better to have this new Flow Rite Livewell. So from here, what I'm going to do is install my control valves up in a position here where I can access them, but I want to make sure that they're still out of the ways of my control lever and for my throttle, but still in a place where I can get them, get to them, reach them easily. So on the back of this, what I need to do is drill about a 1 3/4 inch hole in the fiberglass, and then install a couple of screws to hold the valve into position. And then once I've done that, then I'm going to need to get some water and test the live wells, check for any leaks. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started on installing the control valves, the control handles, and go from there. Okay, now I need to install the controls for the live well, and I've decided I want to put them in this area, but I don't want them to interfere with my throttle control. So I noticed there is a gap right here, and I wanted to put it kind of in that gap. And then so there is I took this pencil to kind of make an arc to try to keep the area of where I need to be. And then so I need to be kind of between those two pencil marks, preferably right in this area. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We need to remember though that we're putting 2 of the valves in. So let's see, that's going to take up, not that much room there. So we'll need to have our lower valve out in that position. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start and drill our first hole right here. And before we do that though, we want to make sure we don't have any wiring or anything behind that's going to cause a problem. Everything's looking good. So I'm using a 1 3/4 inch hole saw to drill through this fiberglass, and then I can install the controls there and hold them in place with a couple of screws. And then while I'm doing that, I'm gonna have my son, my assistant, use the vacuum and kind of vacuum up some of this fiberglass as we're going along and drilling the hole. All right, got the first hole drilled. All right. And so now we need to check the fitment of that one. All right, looks like it's going to be pretty tight, but that's what I wanted. Didn't want to have really extra slop in the hole. On these valves, you just have the part of the wire goes right in here, and then you just tighten it up. It's really easy. All right, that looks pretty good. And so now I just need to pull a little bit of the slack out of the cable so I get it kind of adjusted right on the back end, and then put a couple of screws in here to hold it in position. And now I can work on getting the other valve installed. And we check our clearance with the throttle again. So that looks good. And then when you're positioning these, you can just, if you're running the two live wells, think about whichever way you want to orient them. I'm having my front live well be the top control, and then the rear live well be the lower control. So we need to check again for the back, looking good. And that's if I had my assistant back to do the vacuuming. We got to remember that wherever we drill our hole, we do have that. Our hole is going to be going right here, so this little extra lip is going to be in there, so we need to give room for that. And my assistant left. As you can see, it's a lot cleaner process if you've got a vacuum running while you're doing this. Let's see if I can get that start fired up again. Alright, we've got the cables putting a little bit of pressure on the controls, so I'm going to slide the cables back a little bit. Alright, feels like I've got a little pressure from some cables that is rounded behind, so I just need to slide this back and kind of reroute it up inside the wall of the boat here. Okay, we'll try that again. And then again, this cable, pretty nice design, really pretty simple. Just kind of goes right through that hole, like so. And then the back part of the cable goes here, and then you just turn that like so and tighten it up. Okay, that's better. Okay, so we got clearance from our throttle. Okay, now we've got the controls in. I just need to put a couple of screws, stainless steel screws in there to hold it in position. All right, I am really happy with the way that turns out and that looks. I was a little bit worried about interference with my controller, and putting into this area I've got a lot of cables and power wires going through here, but that just turns out just perfect. And now that I've got the controls installed, I can go ahead and go in the back and zip tie up the cables and everything, because as you can see, as you slid these back, the cables need to be able to move down the side of the boat just to get into the right position. So you don't want to zip tie and secure everything until you've got everything where it needs to be. And then after you're done, you want to test the controls, make sure that you've got good function where it's turned into those valves, those three positions: the recirculation, the empty, the auto. And then again, the empty just has the valve open, so like when you're done, when you shut your pumps off, you get off the lake, you can have it on empty. If you have it on there, of course, it'll also let water in the bottom of the live well when you're on the water. And then you go to auto to fill up the live well and just have it circulate when you're fishing in one position. And then when you get on plane, if you want to keep those live wells full and the water pumping through, that you have it to the recirculation mode. And that's also the mode that you're doing if you're fishing and get off the lake and you need to keep those live wells full because you have a trailering event to go weigh your fish in. Then you want to have that mode, and that'll keep the water in the live well, and as long as you have the pumps going, it'll pump and keep those fish aerated. So now that we've got that done, we're going to go ahead and zip tie everything into position and continue the job. All right, now that we've got the live wells installed, I need to go ahead and get some of these wires zip tied up. I had to take them loose while I was replumbing the live wells. So I'm just going to take some zip ties and get these wires secured. And I find it's a very important thing for the reliability of whether it be your boat, car, old project, is when it comes to the wiring, you want to make sure that you definitely have good connections, and then have it secured so it's not rubbing anywhere or causing any issues. And this is a little bit of overkill, but it definitely doesn't hurt to have some extra zip ties to keep things secure. On the front of this boat, there's moving pulleys and belts and things that move close to this vicinity, so we don't want anything loose and getting into that part of the motor. And also I need to reattach my auto bilge pump. I had it zip tied previously into position. Oh, and this is interesting. Here's a little blue zip tie like they used at the factory with Ranger when they originally manufactured this boat. So that's been floating around at the bottom of this boat for all these years. Isn't that something? And on these zip ties, it's a trick. You can put a couple of them together if they're not looking like they're going to be long enough, and just kind of get you an extra long zip tie. All right, I'm gonna take a minute and clip some of these extra tails off. right, so now we have all our wiring zip tied up. And so the next thing that I want to do is I want to hook up the power to my live well pumps, and I want to get a 5-gallon bucket of water and put it in the front and the rear live well, and I'm going to be able to run this through recirculation mode, and that'll test for any leaks that are going between here, the pump fitting, and the live well on both the front and the rear live well. While we're doing that, we're just going to be looking for any extra water to accumulate in the bottom of the boat. And then to empty it out, we'll just hit the empty selector on the controls and just drain it out through the back of the boat and look for any possible leaks there, which I don't think we're going to find any, but it's good to test it, especially on a boat like this when you're going to put the motor in and it's going to cover up the plumbing. We want to get it tested before we get that motor stuck in there. So I'll get those buckets filled up and get working on that right now. All right, I've got some water in the rear live well. I'm going to get my bucket filled up and put 5 gallons in the front live well. Now we'll put the 5 gallons in the front live well. And I know a lot of guys with these old Rangers will just take this front live well and convert it into a drink holder, but I wanted just to go ahead and keep it as a live well. That way we have a extra space since we've been fishing those tournaments. And the live well hoses you can access through this front drain. They've got 4 screws in there and a little piece of screen, and then there's just hose clamps that hold those hoses on. And you've got the drain hose, the fill hose, and then the overflow hose. Like I said, I put all new hoses in there, ran it through the back of the boat, and it's another possible leak point. You can see here we've got the water in there, it's not leaking. And so we'll go back to the back of the boat. Everything looks good right here. We've got water pressure up through the front portions of the valves and the pump. And now I just need to run the pump, and with the motor out of this thing, to apply power, I'm going to need to get my power probe, hook up to the battery, and then just shoot voltage directly to the wiring where it's wired in at. Okay, now I'm going to test the live well pumps and test them for leaks. Now I've got the motor out of this boat, so I've got all the wiring disconnected. So I'm just going to shoot power and ground directly to the motors, and I'm going to use a device called a power probe. And this is something that you can use for testing power and ground and voltage. But it's also got a feature where you can apply a ground, and then through this button apply voltage, and you can test a light or a circuit, or in this case we're going to test our pumps. So I'm going to go to this first one, and we'll just access them on this panel here. And right now we're testing the rear live well pump. We know we've got water flowing through the pump and through the valve, and since I just installed new hoses and all those connections on there, and also screwed the pump in there to the bottom of that valve, and I used some pipe dope on that, make sure that none of that is leaking. So that one looks good. And then now we'll go ahead and test the front live well pump. And I'm applying power to it right now. I can hear it running in the front, and I'm watching it. I've got new hoses on that one as well. I'm checking it. I don't have any leaks. we've got water flowing through that as well. And then when we're doing this, this is when we have both of the controls in the recirculation mode. And now that I have that done, I'm also going to look underneath the back of the boat, and I can see that I've got no water leaking through my hoses. These hoses are clear, so we know that these valves are doing what they need to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is put it into the empty mode, and we should see that the water should drain out, and I don't anticipate seeing any leaks through these hoses. Everything's dry, so we're going to be in good shape to get our motor put back in, our stern drive put back in, and get this boat back on the water. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. All right, I got my new Flow Rite Livewell System working, and we've got a fish in there, and it's staying alive thanks to the aerator working, giving that thing some oxygen. See, we've got it in the auto mode right now while we're on the water, and if we needed to empty it, we put it to empty, or if we need to keep it full while we're off the water, we can put it in recirculation mode if we're doing a tournament and need to do the weigh-in. But working good. I'm glad to see that.